Hey guys, I'm so glad you are here joining me again for our missionary story, and I hope you were able to watch the last one and you got to learn a little bit more about Dr. Becker. I enjoyed learning a little bit more about his life and how he got saved and how the Lord called him there to go to the Congo in Africa, and how exciting it is to see that God can work in anybody's life, no matter where they come from or no matter what they think they themselves can do. So we're going to jump into chapter 3 today, and we're going to go back to Dr. Becker and his life while he lived there in the African-Belgian Congo. All right, let's get started. Chapter 3, Owicha, Place of Miracles. Dr. Becker stepped out of his car. It was good to be back at Abba, where Marie waited in their home. Home had been many places their first term. First, Kietsambiro, then Misaberry, and then for a while Abba. And now they were to move again. Jim Bell wants us to help in the medical clinic at Owicha, Marie. He wants to spend more time trying to reach the pygmies. Dr. Becker said later, the field council has assigned us there. He paused. I learned some other news. The folks at home were sending the $60 a month for our support have had financial difficulties. It sounds like they won't be able to support us. But God has always met our needs, Carl, Marie responded. And he will continue to do the same as we continue to serve him, her husband said confidently. The Beckers settled into their leaf-roofed home at Owicha. The mission station at Owicha had been cut out of the jungle. Tall trees had been chopped down to let in sunlight. Ground had been cleared and mud huts built. Now that Dr. Becker spent more time at Owicha, more people came to the dispensary. Soon a row of 10 mud huts were added for patients. Then, on the other side of a banana grove, 3 small huts were built for leprosy patients. And still the people came, but no pygmies. One day, Dr. Becker announced he was starting a school to train assistants to help him. What? Friends cried. Take a jungle boy who's used to more play than work? Who probably attended a mission school only to 3rd grade, a boy with no feeling of responsibility or sense of time, and let him assist a doctor? But Dr. Becker had faith in a great God. The boys he trained learned to treat common diseases. They passed the exams from the Belgian colonial government and returned to Owicha to care for almost half of the patients. Dr. Becker was able to perform more operations and care for serious cases. The doctor was also a friend to his helpers. He taught them in a Bible class, told them about world events, and invited them to his home. He lived before them as a Christian should live. One day, a poor, pitiful man named Lazaro was brought to Owicha, dying of gangrene and ulcers. He was from a primitive tribe the other Africans looked down upon. He needs a blood transfusion, said Dr. Becker. One of the medical students will have the honor of giving blood to Lazaro. Nurse, please take blood samples. The students ran away and hid. No one wanted to give blood to this low tribesman. The doctor insisted upon the blood samples. Only one student had the same blood type as Lazaro. Will you save Lazaro's life? The doctor asked him. No, I will not give my blood for anyone else. But not for him. The doctor rolled up his own sleeve. All right, I will give my blood to Lazaro. I'm the same blood type. Will you please take a pint of my blood? The student couldn't believe he heard correctly. The foreign doctor was willing to give his blood to the patient who lay on the stretcher. Shame swept over him. Doctor, take my blood. I'll do it. You are not even of the African race, yet you are willing to give your blood? And Jesus, God's Son, gave his blood for me, and he was divine. Afterward, Dr. Becker showed the students a verse in the Bible. He hath made of one blood all nations of men to dwell on all the face of the earth. There is no such thing as American blood, African blood, tribal blood, royal blood, French blood, German blood, or any other national difference of human blood. Within 2 years, 300 patients a day came to the clinic. Dr. Becker was doing 1,000 operations a year. There were also 175 leprosy patients now. A hospital was needed, but Dr. Becker would not ask anyone for money. He would not even mention his needs to anyone. He said to his staff, God said he would supply our needs. Let's just trust him. And they did. Money came little by little. A small hospital was started. The dispensary was enlarged. Houses were built for patients. A small village for tuberculosis patients was developed. Owicha was growing. Dr. Becker kept his operating room clean and sterile, even though he was in the middle of a jungle. Instruments were washed and sterilized. Doctor and nurses washed their hands often and wore surgical gloves for operations. At the end of one long, busy day, 2 medical aides carried an old man from the forest into the hospital. He was barely alive and was covered with mud. He smelled of filth. The medics laid him down and quickly turned away. Alice, one of the African nurses, had just finished cleaning the operating room. She ran to get Dr. Becker. "Another serious hernia," pronounced the doctor. "Get the operating room ready, please." "For that dirty old man?" Alice exclaimed. "Every person is precious in the sight of the Lord," replied Dr. Becker. "Even this miserable creature?" Alice persisted. "Everyone," repeated the doctor firmly. He operated upon him just as carefully and prayerfully as though the man had been a chief or government official. Alice and the medics never forgot the doctor's words. Every person is precious. At the time Dr. Becker was in the Congo, 40% of the African people had leprosy. Leprosy was considered incurable and highly contagious, but research proved this to be incorrect. Leprosy is a disease where patches of skin lose the color and ability to feel anything. Heat, cold, sharp, dull, soft, hard. The patches or lumps develop on the ears, nose, or even all over the body. A leprosy patient can be easily hurt if he touches something scalding hot or if he steps on a sharp object. Many leprosy patients became deformed and disabled from complications. The leprosy patients at Oicha lived near the hospital in huts of sun-dried brick. Each patient was given 1/2 acre of land to grow vegetables. Every week they received injections of komugra oil. This restored the pigment but did not cure the disease. The new medicine in the form of pills, a sulfa drug, came, and the treatment brought such good results that more leprosy patients arrived. Soon the forest had to be cleared to enlarge the village. Eventually, 4,000 patients plus their families lived at Oicha. In 1954, Dr. Becker had a famous visitor at Oicha. Dr. Robert Cochrane was the world's authority on leprosy. He had visited mission stations all over the world. The leprosy village at Oicha was the largest in Africa, second largest in the world. Dr. Cochrane praised the work at Oicha. Dr. Becker had learned to operate on leprosy patients. His first surgery was on a hand so the twisted fingers could straighten out and be useful again. Then the patient would exercise the hand every day for weeks. The fingers on Munandi's hand had twisted into a claw. He was sure he could never use his hands again. Once Munandi was asleep from anesthesia, Dr. Becker made small cuts in each side of the fingers. He took pieces of healthy muscle from another part of the hand and placed them in the slits. Carefully closing the wound, he applied clean bandages and a plaster splint. Slowly, after 2 months of special exercises, Munandi felt his hand come back to life. He stretched out his fingers and picked up a stone. He fed himself with a spoon. Now he could work and take care of his family. The doctor then ventured into nerve surgery, relieving the pain in hands and arms for leprosy patients who could not sleep because of the pain. A witch doctor named Vubisi was cured of his leprosy at Oicha. He became a Christian, studied the Bible, and later was made a leader in the church. Deep in the Ituri forest around Oicha lived the pygmies. The grown-ups were sometimes no taller than an average man's waist. The pygmies had light copper-colored skin with tight little curls all over their heads. They were a carefree people, seldom leaving the forest. They were the Congo's gypsies, never staying long in one place, living only to eat, sleep, hunt, and play. Since Oicha's mission station had been founded with the hope of reaching the pygmies, Jim Bell and his wife had often gone into the forest to witness to these people. But so far, very few pygmies ever stopped there. "The other African tribes don't consider the pygmies human," said Dr. Becker to his wife. "They look down upon the pygmies." He prayed, asking God for wisdom and helping the Africans understand a pygmy was an important person in God's sight, with a soul worth saving. One day, when the doctor had an especially long line of patients waiting in the hot sun for their medicine, he noticed a little pygmy fellow carrying his dog approach the front desk to give his name and tell his problem. Pygmies used dogs, which did not bark, for hunting. All the medical students began to laugh. The doctor isn't busy enough, so this little guy brings his sick dog to keep the doctor busy. Ha ha ha, he thinks the munganga will look at a mongrel dog. Dr. Becker felt this just might be the answer to his prayer. When the medical assistants saw the doctor coming, they stopped making fun of this little man. I'll pay his fee, said the doctor. A few pennies was the charge to register at the medical clinic for the year. This was done to give patients a feeling of having paid their way. Oh, he has paid, said a helper, hiding his smile. He pointed to the 3 pennies on the desk. It's just that this unimportant creature brings you a dog to treat. The doctor knelt and took the dog in his arms. Munganga, said the little man, I was hunting monkeys when a very angry one fell upon my dog and bit him. I am afraid he will die. Come into my office, said the doctor, and he let the pygmy go ahead of all the patients who were waiting. The pygmy's wife followed. There wasn't a sound after the medical assistant stopped laughing. Dr. Becker treated the pygmy with his dog just as kindly as he treated everyone else. Perhaps he will tell his tribe and others will come, thought the doctor. At least my assistants have seen that every single person is treated equally here at Owicha. Although much time went by after that, few pygmies came to the hospital. Well then, said Dr. Becker, if the pygmies won't come to us, we will go to the pygmies. A missionary, Margaret Clapper, went into the rainforest some years later and searched for pygmy camps and villages. Miss Clapper became a missionary to the pygmies, hiking miles of jungle paths on foot. Miss Clapper had 4,000 pygmy names written in a booklet she carried. 1/3 of them professed to receive Christ through the efforts of the Bells and Miss Clapper, and at Owicha Hospital where they had finally begun going when they got sick. Owicha had become a place of miracles, where God never failed to send what was needed just in time. It was a place where a Christian doctor, nurses, missionaries, and African medical assistants loved and cared for people no one else would touch. And it was a place where Christians loved pygmies enough to go into the jungle and search for them so they could hear that Jesus died for them. Wonderful things happened almost every day at Owicha, but there was terrible trouble ahead that even the doctor could not imagine. There was an explosion coming that would shake the entire world. And that is the end of our chapter 3, and it kind of left on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and we're going to learn what was that big thing that's going to take place in the world and in Dr. Becker's life next week. But I want you to think about something, just as Dr. Becker learned from the Bible and from the Lord, that every person is precious in his sight. Maybe you have friends in your neighborhood, or maybe you have kids that you know, or just maybe you have some people that you know through different places. Maybe they look different, maybe they act a little bit different, maybe they're not Christians, so maybe they sometimes have bad attitudes. We meet all kinds of people every single day. How are you treating those people? How are you treating those kids in your neighborhood? Are you mean to them just because they may look a little different? Are you mean to them because maybe they don't act as good as you do? Or maybe because they just act differently? You know, we learned in our story today that Dr. Becker treated every single person, no matter the race, no matter who he or was, or how he looked. He treated them because they were precious in God's sight, just like you're precious in God's sight too. So think of that today as you go and meet people or as you have friends in your neighborhood. Maybe tell them about Jesus and how they are precious in his sight. Thanks for joining in today and look forward to seeing you next week.